I won't defriend you, and I won't condemn and say that Candace Owens is hateful. They want me really, really badly to condemn Candace Owens. And I'm sorry to break it to them, but I am responsible for what I say, not for what anybody else says. I am not Candace Owens's policeman. And by the way, they're kidding themselves that if just one more voice will say something nasty about Candace, she could finally be controlled. Like, how well has that worked so far? But again, the instinct is to stop her speech, stop it, make her stop it, make Tucker stop saying the things. Well, I have no desire to, and I have no power to. And for that, I was called a coward by Ben Shapiro at the Turning Point event, AmFest, in December, who, by the way, in my last exchange with him, literally said, our friendship, his and mine, is too important to both of us to make it depend on whom else we are friends with and aren't friends with. That is literally the last text I have from Ben Shapiro. The next thing I knew, he was standing on the stage at Turning Point calling me a coward for this very thing.
That's how you know somebody is a snake. You can tell when somebody don't really like you. They're just trying to use you. Ben Shapiro is fitting all the stereotypes that everyone talks about. And this only makes Candace Owens seem like she's right more and more and more, because everything she says ends up becoming true. And she been said that they was going to come for Megyn Kelly. And it's sad because Megyn Kelly actually supports them. And she said that she did not agree with Candace on a whole bunch of things. She just doesn't condemn her. So the same group of people like Ben Shapiro, those conservative type people that say that people on the left are crazy because they have this groupthink and they all pile behind each other, even though the idea is foolish. It's the same person trying to get people to pile behind him, although his ideas is foolish.
I am convinced now more than ever that there is a crew for whom everything revolves around Israel, that friendships don't matter, love relationships don't potentially matter. The only thing that matters is whether you are standing up for Israel or not. And on top of that, you can even stand up for Israel as I have. You also must not just condemn, but defriend anyone who is raising questions about Israel. It's important that that other person be excised from polite society, be ostracized, that you join us in our messaging to tell the world that they're terrible, they're evil, they should be out of polite society. And no, we're not calling for cancellation. No one's calling for cancellation or deplatforming. Just stop. That's not what we're doing. We just don't want them ever to appear at a Turning Point event again. We just don't want them ever to be invited to CPAC. We just never want to see them at a White House event. We just never want ever to see them platformed on your show, which is independent and in the digital lane. Absolutely not. So it's fine. Technically, they can exist in the ether with a microphone. That's fine. We're not anti-free speech, but we just need to pressure and cancel everyone around them for continuing a relationship with them. And it's absolutely disgusting. I heard you say this not long ago, and I completely related. I'd rather die than do that. And now that they've made that the stakes of my so-called friendships with them, I really won't do it. Now, I don't care what anybody says. Like, I'll never do it now. Even if I have actual disagreements that I otherwise would raise, hell no, because I'm not raising the fist and saying BLM at the table, and I'm not bending the knee to these bullies who think they can control me.
That's how you know they're bullies, because when Candace Owens was talking about black people, they had no problem with her talking about black people. When Candace Owens went after BLM, which is her own people, they all applauded it and they all put it on their stage and they said that this is bad, right? But when you get to a point where Israel is now bombing people and everyone says like something is off with this, right? Because there's a lot of innocent children and a lot of women that are getting killed behind that, right? Especially when the majority of the population is women and children. So you have to like look at it and be like, all right, something is off there, whether you think it's justified or not. To say that somebody saying that is off is wrong, it gets weird. But when it comes to black people, when they riot and they throw a cocktail inside of a car and light the car on fire and loot stores, it's not to say that either one is good. But if you had to choose between somebody looting stores and causing chaos or somebody taking out women and children, so to say that one is bad and you're so happy to bring down one side, But when somebody criticizes you, you have a big problem. And you have this problem where you do not want these people to even have an existence. And in Candace Owens' new episode, she really got deep into how they move behind the scenes. And what she was explaining is that they'll do things not by trying to say that you cannot do things. They'll just make it extremely difficult for you to do things. In other words, they'll talk to everybody around you to make sure nobody collabs with you and get with you. They'll call all your sponsors to make sure you can't get no sponsors. When it came to Candace Owens being demonetized, I believe it was the whatever league it was, that they all was applauding because they all mass reported her channel and got it demonetized. So she never had a strike before. And I think she got 3 strikes within like a day. So she got all 3 strikes within a day and they demonetized her channel for a few months. So they're trying to take away your money. Then Ben Shapiro would sue her. He'll keep on suing her and try to sue her to make her bankrupt and say that you can't do this. So these people look at you like, all right, if you're not a part of our club, then you can't be in any club. And we're going to keep on bashing you. For him to sit on stage with her and says that our friendship is important. That's Ben Shapiro talking to Megyn Kelly. For him to sit on stage with Megyn Kelly and say our friendship is important and how we need to condemn this person because we are friends. And then right after, when that person doesn't do what you want them to do, condemn that person, shows that y'all was never friends in the first place. And for him to go on stage and bash her, although she always stood up for Ben Shapiro, when she stood up for Israel, she stood up for everybody. And she said that they have rights to do whatever they have done, even though you don't agree with it all the way. So for her to still defend you, just not defend you the way you want to, is insane that you just put her down and throw her directly under the bus. It shows you that people like that are not your friends. And Tucker Carlson is having a fantastic time right now.
I always think to myself, I don't think I've ever said an anti-Semitic thing in my life. I'm positive you haven't. They never point to anything that's anti-Semitic.
No.
But what's interesting is while the rest of us are having these debates, a bunch of different states, including the state of Florida, the most important state in a lot of ways, has codified anti-Semitism as a crime, and they've defined, not anti-anything, just anti-Semitism, and they've defined it in a way that is so expansive that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. The claim that someone is Israel first is a crime in the state of Florida. DeSantis signed this. And I'm just like, well, wait a second. I mean, I don't think most people even know that that happened. And plenty of states have done that. And so I think we're going to wake up one morning with European hate crimes laws written in a way that is not fair at all, that doesn't affect justice, and is basically just another form of identity politics at the point of a gun. I think this is going to happen.
It is identity politics. It really is. And I'll tell you the number one reason, apart from the free speech principles, I guess the number 2 reason we shouldn't be doing that, it will cause anti-Semitism.
Well, exactly.
It absolutely will cause. In the same way that now, like, people don't understand Nick Fuentes. You may be familiar with him. They don't understand him, right? Like, why? Why are people flocking to Nick Fuentes? You know what? It's because a lot of young white men in particular have been told for years now that identity is everything. It's everything. It does matter. What is your in-group? And those are your compadres. And you better get, some alignment there, because we're factioning now into groups. And you better figure out which one is yours. And so there are a lot of young white men who have accepted the messaging of the BLMers and the wokesters on the left and have understood now, like, you know what? I don't want to follow what Tucker Carlson is saying, that we don't judge people like that, even though we're on the right. That I'm accepting the messaging that's been taught to me by my teachers, K through 12, by my university professors for 4 years, by my grad school professors, by the media, by corporate America, all of them, which is identity does matter. Your very goodness will be rated on whether you accept this premise. And they've accepted it, and now they're leaning into white identity politics and then being shamed because the leader of those happens to be Nick Fuentes. So that what the Jews who push those laws, and there's a lot of Jews down in Florida and a lot of Jewish people in New York too, they think that the answer to anti-Semitism, which is a problem to some extent, of course, is to get themselves recategorized as one of the protected DEI groups. And of course it's not. The answer is to demolish DEI.
Of course.
The answer is to stop separating us by group. And the more you start cracking down on people's thought crimes against Israel, or even their anti-Semitism, truly, like, this is America. You're allowed to be a racist. You're allowed to be a misogynist. You're allowed to be an anti-Semite.
Exactly.
You're not allowed to like make hiring and firing decisions based on that. But that's not what we're arguing over here. We're talking about what's in your head and your heart. The more you try to criminalize that or ruin someone's life over those thoughts, the more you engender the very hatred you say you're objecting to.
That's true. And when it comes to white men, a lot of white men and white people, they're being mistreated off of whatever happened in the past. So they say their ancestors and these people are the bad people. The sad part is you have more in common with a person that has a different skin color, a different religion, whatever it is, in your neighborhood that you see at, I don't know, Walmart or any supermarket or any outing that you see, whoever you walk past, whoever you're on a bus with, you have far more in common with that person than the rich people. After every single thing get passed, it's rich people that benefit on the back end of it. When poor people start talking, it's because rich people make them go against each other and infight on something, because they'll say the white men are bad. But then again, you'll see the white men at the top living prosperous and happy. So the white men at the bottom have to feel ostracized, and then they start to fight back. At some point, they're going to fight back. If you say these people are worthless and they're bad just solely because they're white, it's the same thing that Tucker Carlson always speak about every time he speak about Jewish people. When Tucker Carlson speaks about Jewish people, he always says that it's wrong to have blood guilt, to say somebody should be mistreated solely from the way they was born. That's wrong 100% of the time. And that's what he was saying, Nick Fuentes, even though they said that he never criticized them, which I watched that interview and I don't know how they missed that part. But he said that's the main thing. You cannot say somebody is bad or should be treated a certain way solely because the way they were born. That's wrong. That is blood guilt. And they are doing that to the white people. Now, if you do that to certain groups of people, they're at some point going to fight back. Nobody's going to just keep on allowing you to just step on them and demonize them. That's just not going to happen. So by you ostracizing yourself and saying that you're a higher class or you're a protected class, it's basically the haves and the have-nots. And at that point, you don't want to be the person that has.
And this is in part reason the reason, Tucker, that I tweeted out that it's not Tucker Carlson and his views on Israel that are causing anti-Semites. It is more the Ben Shapiros and the Barry Weisses of the world. And of course, the ADL then called me an anti-Semite because what happens is, you see the cycle, right? Like, you get attacked. I didn't attack Barry or Ben. They attacked me. Again, just because I wouldn't defriend people. They attacked me. I said to them, that behavior is going to cause anti-Semites. Like, you shouldn't do that because this is actually undermining the very thing you say you care about. Then he swoops in the ADL to say, you're an anti-Semite for saying that to them. You're not allowed to defend yourself against their attacks by saying, hey, you're the one who's bringing more hatred into this argument.
Exactly.
Because that so on and on it goes. But I genuinely believe it, and I genuinely don't want additional Jew hatred happening in this country.
I don't either.
Of course not.
Most normal American Jewish people would never make Israel the stakes of a relationship. I know so many Jewish dear friends of mine who are sick of talking about Israel.
Yes.
Ben, Barry, Levin, they don't speak for the vast majority of American Jewish people who would never think of making your feelings about Benjamin Netanyahu the stakes of your friendship or love relationship.
That's exactly a fact. I grew up around so many Jewish people. When I say so, I'm like directly across the street, buildings and buildings full of them. And even in the buildings that we visited, we all cohabitate. There's a lot of Jewish people in the building and a lot of other ethnic groups is in same building, right? I have never met a Jewish person in person that was rude. They're always nice. They're always polite. It's just genuinely just good people overall. They don't cause no problems. They really just be chilling, right? For me to look at that person that's just chilling, that I see every single day and I grew up around, for me to see those people and try to demonize them because of what somebody else did is just weird and it's crazy. However, when you start making these people a protected class and then you see the people on the higher level start doing things, then it starts to trickle down for your hatred to the people on the lower level. This is what's happening to the white people, right? So you have the white people at the top that's making a lot of these rules and these politicians, and it starts to come down to the white men now, the everyday white man. So now they're taking the heat for something that the 0.00001% did, which makes absolutely no sense. But that's what tends to happen. So this is what he's saying. When you create, you'll create more anti-Semites by doing that. And then they don't get the backlash of that. They're fine. They get a little bit of words. But however, when it comes to the average everyday person, no matter where you're from, you will take the hit of that. And that seems to happen over and over when it comes to politics. These people in politics do not care about you. They do not care about me. They care about themselves. The newest psyop. This is how you know it's a psyop. Let's talk about this psyop first. This is a psyop when an idea cannot stand on its own. When you have to silence another group for your idea to exist, that is automatically a psyop. When it comes to anything that's political, any big thing that happened, the top benefits, everybody else are like sheep. You basically working for it. This is the reason why you have politicians and people lobby. Wondering like, why do people lobby and pay millions and millions with these big companies? They always talking about the oligarchs, and even like Democrats, when they talk about all the oligarchs and these big companies, Kamala Harris got like over $1 billion in endorsements. Why? You think that just came because they just wanted to see a Democratic Party? The people that's against the rich is getting donations from the richest of the richest, and 4 times more than the Republicans was getting. How does that make sense? And you think these people was going to throw money at you for no reason? No, they didn't become rich by just giving out donations. They're not going to MC Hammer their company, right? So these companies will lobby. And now the newest psyop that I'm seeing, that they flipped the food pyramid. That gets kind of weird. So our whole life, the food pyramid was a certain way, which people, anybody that's holistic and believe in stuff like that, where they say you should consume mostly bread or something like that and carbs, which didn't make sense. And then now they're like flipping the food pyramid and saying like, all right, this is a new food pyramid because that food pyramid was no good. I'm like, really? That's a psyop. They made you believe something because you would get these food companies that's lobbying the politicians and then making it seem like, all right, this is what we're putting out to the public and this is what's going to be good. By the time they realize it's bad, we done made billions on top of hundreds of billions of dollars, and then we could just flip it. That to benefit us. Milk. The story behind milk is so ridiculous to the point that nobody ever consumed it. But once they start saying, make your bones stronger, right? Once they started doing propaganda, people that was married didn't have wedding rings before until the jewelry company said, hey, you don't love your woman unless you buy her a ring. That's relatively new in comparison to history. So when you see somebody get a wedding ring or drop on one knee, that's all propaganda that happened from a jewelry company. Think about that. And they can put it in your culture. Now, that's not political, but I'm just saying that's just propaganda. But when it comes to the political parts of it, they lobby politicians so politicians can do their biddings for them. These people do not give money for no reason. And you have no say-so in that. So you basically just take the blunt of whatever the rich people want. So anybody that can be bought, anybody that can be lobbied is no good. Because those people are paying you money so you can give up something for them. They want something in return. And something in return usually comes from the expense of you and me.